I've now played 150 hours of Assassin's Creed Shadows on my main save, but it's way more if you count my other saves, and my main Ghost of Yotei save shows 88 hours right now. So I've been getting a lot of questions, which game is better, Yotei or Shadows? I think the whole debate is far more nuanced than simply saying Yotei is better at almost everything. In my opinion, Assassin's Creed Shadows actually does quite a few things better than Yotei, although overall I think Ghost of Yotei is a much easier game to recommend. And that's mostly because the open world is just so much better. Ubisoft games still struggle to create a true sense of mystery. Sure, you can't see the exact locations on the map in Shadows, but it's always one of the same handful of activities that play out in exactly the same way. In Yotei, even if you do another bamboo cutting challenge, it usually has a small side story or unique twist that keeps it interesting. Both games have Ronin hunting you, but in Shadows, they're just roaming enemies that attack you on sight, whereas in Yotei, every encounter with a Ronin is handcrafted, featuring unique dialogue that even evolves as your bounty increases. I especially love their inclusion in other types of content. For instance, when picking up a bounty yourself, you might encounter these masterless samurai who are also going after the target and who at first want to cooperate, only to turn against you later on. It creates a feeling that the world is alive and that the content is not just designed for you, but that things are happening naturally, as if anyone could be hunting the same targets in this world. Speaking of those bounties, they all have their own personality. Whether it's a small story or strange encounter, every bounty you go after in Ghost of Yotei feels memorable in its own way. In contrast, the countless targets you hunt in Shadows might have a short written background description, but in the end, they're just NPCs waiting to be assassinated. Hunting each target in Shadows feels mostly the same, with a few rare exceptions, such as when you can lure multiple targets together to take them all out, or that one time you are ambushed while starting the meditation minigame. Moments like that are cool, but few and far between in a game with 100 hours of content. I do think this mostly comes down to a difference in design philosophy though, but more on that later. Let's talk combat. Hitting enemies with different weapons feels more satisfying in Yotei, and the game also has more enemy types, something you can never have enough of. But I still think choosing between one or the other largely comes down to personal preference. Yotei heavily relies on a rock, paper, scissors style of gameplay, where you are at a disadvantage if you don't use the right weapon type against the right enemy. Luckily, an upgraded Odashi can be used against anyone, but it's still much more restrictive than in Assassin's Creed Shadows, where you can freely choose any weapon combination for any situation. I personally prefer that freedom. There are also way more ways to change your playstyle in Shadows compared to Yotei. Both games feature special perks that impact the way you play, but Yotei's options are more limited. Each armor set only focuses on one particular playstyle, ranged, melee or stealth, but you rarely stick to just one in this game. Many perks in Yotei are also quite situational. For example, blocking bullets is only useful against ranged enemies that you encounter in one region, and even then, you are often better off using a perk that's active more consistently. In Shadows, you can mix and match perks from different armor sets and weapons to create your own builds and find fun combinations. That also makes every item you find useful, since even if you don't like it, you can still extract a powerful perk from it. In Yotei, you will find armor sets that have no use because they don't fit your preferred playstyle or because the perks just aren't that great. And since Yotei has no transmog, you cannot even use their luck. Shadows does not have these issues. It even has transmog at launch, giving you much more customization freedom. And yes, while you have stealth perks in Yotei, Shadows clearly wins in this department. And if you like the video so far, leave a like and subscribe, of course, for way more content like this. Not only do the levels feel more designed for stealth, offering more opportunities to approach enemies silently, Naue also has way more tools to distract or hide from enemies compared to Atsu. A big difference is that in Yotei you are reliant on empty sake bottles to lure enemies in certain directions, and sure, you find these pretty often near tall grass, but it really limits your overall options. The stealth in Yotei never really feels like your idea. It's always the game already laying out the only stealth route that is available. This also because tall grass is often your only hiding option. There's much less use of verticality, and you cannot hide in the shadows either. And sure, the AI is not the best in Shadows, but it feels like the enemies in Yotei are even more blind. The bow, especially combined with the true aim charm, also somewhat defeats the purpose of stealth in Yotei, since you can one-shot multiple enemies and stay hidden. The kunai in Yotei is also not a stealth tool, but with the Crimson Kimono you can use it for chain assassinations and know which target you will assassinate and choose to go through with it or not, while a similar perk in Shadows automatically decides that for you. Apart from that though, Shadows stealth systems offer more freedom and have more depth overall. In terms of graphics, you can make a strong case for both games. They're both beautiful, especially on a big screen. Yotei impresses with the incredible draw distance, while Shadows shines with its dense urban environments. While both are set in Japan, Shadows takes place on the mainland, giving it more cities and overall a more varied world. The seasons in Shadows also make every region look and feel different, especially during winter, with snow appearing anywhere in the open world. Yotei still has the more old school approach with one region where you always find snow. So again, both games are technical masterpieces. Because Yotei is only designed for PS5, it can way better utilize the hardware, so load times are for example way faster, but I would still say Shadows takes the crown here. Especially if you compare how both handle destructible environments. It looks way more realistic in Shadows. That said, I would still recommend Yotei to most people over Shadows. Simply put, Yotei focuses more on quality over quantity, while Shadows try to include more content, but because of that, not all of it feels as refined. A great example is the main story targets. Both Atsu and Naoe pursue their own quest for revenge. Yotei has 6 main targets, with one of them dying early on, while Shadows has 12. This gives Sucker Punch far more time to set up each target, highlight their motivation, and make the eventual showdown feel more satisfying. In Shadows, these main story targets don't get the same treatment, and their assassinations end up feeling less personal. But overall, I think the goal of both games is much more different than it seems. To me, it feels like comparing Battlefield to Call of Duty. Sure, they're both military shooters, but one focuses on large-scale cinematic battles, while the other is faster and more about 1v1 gunfights. Yotei wants to immerse you in an open world filled with interesting encounters and stories that you can get lost in, and that sometimes rewards you with powerful unlocks as well. Shadows, on the other hand, is much more of an RPG, where you are constantly improving your character through new skill points, gear and resources that you can then use in the hideout system, which provide powerful bonuses. Having a lot of content you can easily complete provides that dopamine-filled grind that I really enjoy, putting a podcast on in the background while constantly seeing the numbers go up. It's not for everyone, but it's my favorite way to play Shadows, and what gives the game more replayability than Yotei. Now, I do think they're leaning too heavily into that grindy direction though, and that adding more narrative-focused side content, like Odyssey did, would help future RPGs a lot. And that's basically what Yotei already provides. As open world fans, we should be happy that we have both games releasing so close together. I hope both Ubisoft and Sucker Punch learn from one another and apply that to their future projects, because that's when we all win. Now, I'm really curious to hear your take in the comments down below. Subscribe, leave a like, and I will speak to you soon. Goodbye.